What's up, guys? Welcome to the week of September 26th. It's actually the 25th when I'm making this video, but in order to get this out in a timely manner, which is Wednesday, that's when I said it'd be out, we're doing this tonight. So, if you're watching this on Wednesday or after, what I'm going to say for the next 30 seconds is out of date. But everything from that point forward will be new information. This is the cold front that's moving through right now. You can kind of see where the isobars are packed together a little bit. And that's cooling us down 15, 20 degrees in some places. It's going to make it all the way to the deep south and kind of stall out just like last week's did. It's bringing a bunch of high pressure behind it. That's pretty standard for cold fronts. You probably heard me talk about that in some previous videos from last year. High pressure is an artifact of a cold front because the cold air is sinking down, and so it's putting extra weight on the surface, which causes the high pressure. Whether or not you think that's important for deer is up to you. I don't personally look at it. I pay more attention to the fronts and just the overall day-to-day temperature and precipitation and wind conditions and that sort of thing. But anyway, front kind of stalls out down here in the deep south, gets to about right there, and then you can see a big area of high pressure here. And the way you know it's high pressure is you can see that the numbers, so this is 1016, 1018, 1020, 1022, 1024, they're going up towards the center, so that's a high pressure area. If it was a low pressure area, it'd be the opposite. They're going to lower numbers as you go towards the middle circle. I'll show you that here in a second, because there's several low pressure systems that are going to be moving in over the next week, which are going to bring more cold fronts, which is exciting. So, big area of high pressure here. Everyone's pretty cooled down. It's actually going to feel like fall out there this week. And then things warm up for just a little bit. One day looks like Thursday. Everywhere except really the northern plains are going to warm up. Obviously out here in the western states it's still pretty hot. But unfortunately for you guys, you don't really get the effect of these cold fronts that move across the central U.S. So it is what it is, but you know that. You know how to hunt accordingly. So anyway, so this is the second low pressure system of the forecast period. And you can see that again. So we got 1014 and 1012. They don't have the number in a good. Okay, there it is. Way up here. 1012, 1010, 1008, 1006. So this is a pretty weak low pressure system. But it is going to get enough gradient to kind of pull this wind out of the north here. And what I mean by that is the tighter the gradient is, so like the closer together these isobars are here, the stronger the pull is from the low pressure system. That's how you get cold fronts, is you get air that goes from high pressure to low pressure, and the stronger that low pressure is, the harder it's going to pull that air. And so oftentimes in the middle of winter, or not middle of winter, but like early fall, mid-fall, you'll get strong low-pressure systems that move across the northern part of the U.S. and down into the Great Lakes area, and so they'll pull massive amounts of cold air out of Canada. You can have that any time of the year, but it's more common in the middle of the fall. And so you can see this here. This is getting stronger as it kind of progresses. It's down to 1002. Now it's below 1,000. And this has got quite a bit of cool air behind it. But it's not the strongest one that we're going to see through this forecast period. But it does get us into the 30s in the Great Lakes area and northern plains and the northeast a little bit. Again, massive area of high pressure. If you like to look at that stuff, that's 1028. That's pretty high. And for those of you who look at things in inches of mercury instead of millibars, just to give you an idea, to mercury, Come on. Google, you're normally good at just converting these things. Oh, we need inches of mercury, not millimeters. Excuse me, folks. Inches of mercury. 30.35. There you go. So that's pretty solid high pressure. You know, standard pressure at sea level is like 29.9. It's actually lower as you go north and into the mountains because your elevation gets higher, obviously. So you know what standard pressure is at your area if you have lived there a while. So you can just reference that accordingly. But anyway, so that's as far out as the NAM goes. Obviously, we want to get past Saturday because we do weekly forecasts. So we can just take this out a little bit. The NAM goes to 84 hours, which is right there. That matches pretty closely with what the NAM was showing, so we know that the models are in general agreement out to that range. The GFS kind of stands alone and going out this far with surface temperature forecast, so can't really compare it to anything beyond this. So it's like I've said in the past, once you hit 150 hours or more, you're kind of losing your accuracy quite a bit. So just keep that in mind if you're using this website yourself. But we'll just go ahead and move this out. And this low pressure here, I'm guessing there's another low pressure center somewhere up in Canada. You can't see it. But the reason I say that is because there's a massive area of cold air here that kind of gets shunted south real briefly. And then it kind of moves off to the east. But then the big one is going to be this guy here. And that's a really strong low. I mean, we're getting down into the 980s here. And remember, I said 1013 is about standard pressure at sea level. So getting into the 980s is pretty low. And you can see this is a really tight gradient with the isobars. And this is going to drag a pretty stout cold front out of the north here. And that's going to dive pretty hard into most of the country. At least east of the Rockies, that is. And then we're going to really start seeing some fall temperatures in the across the U.S., at least the eastern U.S., eastern and central. And that's going to be right around the October 1st opener for everybody that has that date for their archery opener. So that's exciting for those folks. So keep an eye on that. You know, this is way out in model fantasy land, but one kind of sanity check we can do to at least think maybe that's a possibility is we can come over here to pivotal weather. And if you can go to the European model, which is this ECMWF, and you can't look at surface temperature with the Euro model on pivotal, but you can look at surface pressure. And if we move this out to 216, actually 240, excuse me, you can see this massive area of high pressure at the surface. And it's like I was saying earlier, high pressure at the surface this time of year is associated with cold fronts. So that's really strong. You know, that's getting up into the mid to high 1030s, maybe even 1040 up here in Canada. So that's a strong front. And the Euro and the GFS are in agreement on this right now, which we can kind of look at that and say, okay, you know, we can put a little more stock in that since both models are saying that. But time will tell. You know, this is all the way into next Friday. So I will have put out another forecast by then, and we'll know for sure. But just keep that in mind, especially if you've got an October 1st opener. Now, going back to COD, just want to give you guys a look at some precipitation products real quick. And we've had some storms move through the Midwest today, and those are going to push out, and the cold front's going to keep kicking up a little bit of weather as it moves through the country, the current cold front. You can see that this is kind of the line where that's at tomorrow, which tomorrow is Wednesday at the time I'm making this video. So if you're watching it, it's today. And that's going to kind of push down like I was showing you. And then as it moves through, it'll kick some more up down there along the east coast, and then eventually it'll move out. Looks like some weak precipitation might show up in the Midwest on Thursday. And then after that, most of the country is going to be high pressure city. So most of the rain is going to be out of the question. Maybe a little bit in the Central Plains, but nothing too crazy. Now, at this point, I mean, it's not crazy to start talking about snow with the cold fronts we're seeing, but I don't really think there's anyone in the U.S. that's going to be getting major snow at this point. The NAM's kind of hinting at just a touch in northern Minnesota, but I'm not going to put a lot of stock in that because that's, who knows. Snow forecasting is really hard, and when snow starts to become more of a possibility as the season moves on, I'll get into the specifics of that and why your local weatherman sucks so bad at telling you how much snow you're going to get. And I'm not claiming to be any better. I'm just going to explain to you why it's so tough. But anyway, so let's go to the Climate Prediction Center. Whoops, that is not it. That is. And we can just look at the 8 to 2 week outlook for temperature, and it's showing below normal for most of the northern part of the country, which makes sense based on the cold fronts that we're expecting. They're going to be fairly strong cold fronts over the next week to 2 weeks, so that makes sense that we're going to see below normal temperatures. And then the East Coast and deep south, kind of the lower Mississippi Valley region and the Northeast, you guys are all going to see probably above normal temperatures based on this graphic. Same with the West Coast. And it makes sense that they're saying that, because if you look at the West Coast right now on the models, it's hot, really hot. So, but it's a dry heat, right? And then we can go to the precipitation forecast over the next several days, and this kind of lines up with that rain I was showing you from the cold front that'll be pushing through over the next few days. This is actually quite a bit of rain. You know, looking at a couple inches there, so it may be some slow moving stuff, or I mean, when you get down into the Gulf Coast area with the cold fronts, you know, they're really good at picking up all that air and creating rain, so could be some pretty solid rainfall there over the next few days. And then up into the Carolinas, maybe some in the Northeast up here. So it's going to be a good week to 10 days of hunting, I think, for most people. Definitely, you know, try to get out there if the season's already open for you, or definitely be looking at that first week of October when that big one moves in. I think it's going to be awesome. Going to see a lot of bucks hit the ground. And I think I went over this in the last video, but maybe I didn't. So just one thing that you can do to use this site for yourself is you can look at these higher resolution models like the NAM Nest and the HURR and the RAP. Those are all models that run on shorter time scales, so they have basically they have more data points on the map, so you're getting more information per square mile, basically. The regular NAM and the GFS, they have less data points per square mile. It's not really per square mile, but that's just an easy way to think about it. And so the less data points you have, obviously the less information, less accurate information you're going to get. So if you want to look at like a point location, go to the NAM Nest or the HURR, depending on how far out you want to look. The NAM Nest goes out to 60 hours. The HURR goes out to like 18 hours or something like that. So if you're planning to hunt for the morning, probably use the HURR. If you're planning to hunt for a day or two ahead, you know, use the NAM Nest. But I might go hunting on Friday. We'll have to see what I got going on. But so I'm gonna come here to the Nam Nest. I live about right here. I'm gonna be hunting fairly close to that location. So if we take, hopefully this goes to Friday. Does it? Close. So this goes out to Friday morning. This is 7 a.m. Friday morning. And I can see that I've got 40 degrees with winds of 10 to 15 knots. You can approximate that to miles per hour. It's a difference of like 0.2. So 10 to 15 miles an hour on average, probably gusting to 20 out of the northwest. Now, I can look at this and think, yeah, based on this, I'm probably going to have a little bit of a wind shift, maybe switching to more westerly throughout the day, just kind of based on how this stuff out here looks. And if you want to double check that, you can come to the regular NAM, look at the same location, and see what it says. So let's go out to Friday morning. Yeah, so the wind's going to switch a little bit during the day. It's going to get all the way up to the low 50s. Wind's going to be off and on. So it's a little bit weaker in the morning. Strengthens up midday. We got 15 knots there. Then goes back down at night. So that looks like a pretty darn good hunting day to me. I mean, this is 1024, high pressure. Winds out of the west northwest. It's pretty cool for this time of year. With the high pressure, don't really expect any precipitation. Fairly consistent wind. Obviously, if I'm going to hunt all day, I'm going to need to watch it, but I'll probably just hunt the evening and afternoon if I go. And the wind should be mostly consistent up until right around dark. And then it'll switch more out of the west. So that's kind of the thing I look at when I go to look at the day I'm going to hunt. I'll just look at a couple models that are, more set on this location and just kind of look at what's going on. If you're not familiar with these maps, then I can just kind of give you a rundown real quick of how to look at the wind barbs. So the wind barbs show the magnitude and direction of the wind, magnitude meaning speed. And you can just look up wind barb, and it'll kind of show you what all the different speeds are. What is going on there? So one little barb on the post is 5 knots. Like it's like half the length of a normal one. This is the normal one here. So a full length barb is 10 knots. And this is actually wrong. That should be 15 knots if it's got a long one and a short one. Just like that, yeah. So this is going to show 15 knots. 2 long ones is 20 knots and so forth. And then a flag is 50 knots. And then you just add on from there. And the direction of the wind you can think about as an arrow flying. So this is the direction it's going. This is the direction it's coming from. So if this were on a map, the wind would be coming from the east, blowing to the west. So if we go back to our map, this is wind coming from the northwest to the southeast at about 10 miles an hour or 10 knots. So that's kind of the way you read that if you're not familiar. Again, I have a video on the site all about going through weather models, how to read them, how to use them, where to find them. Go check that out if you're not familiar with this stuff. Otherwise, that's kind of the rundown for the next 7 days. Let's just see if there's any severe weather expected. This is stuff that's happening right now, so hopefully no one's hunting right now. If they are, it's illegal. Looks like the Northeast is expecting some severe weather tomorrow. The Northeast isn't expecting. The Storm Prediction Center is expecting some severe weather in the Northeast tomorrow. I'm not going to read this to you guys, but I can kind of get a general idea. Damaging wind threat. Maybe a couple tornadoes mixed in there. Looks like maximum tornado risk 5%. wind 15%. And a 5% tornado risk is actually, fairly substantial. It's not huge, but it's enough to pay attention to because it's 5% chance of a tornado within 25 miles of any given point. So that's worth paying attention to if you live up there. But anyway, that's about all I got for you. That's kind of the rundown. So again, get out there and always get out there if you can. But the next 10 days look really good. I'll see you back here Wednesday for the next forecast. And good luck out there, guys.